Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In today's episode, we have new poll data that contradicts Joe Biden's messaging and narrative that the economy is doing okay, with more Americans saying that they are financially worse off than any other time since the Great Recession. We also have a phenomenal video clip with a Republican destroying Democrats on illegal immigration, followed up with a story about how ICE falsely and erroneously reported numbers on illegal immigration. By falsely reported, they were off by 18,000%. Wait till we get to that one. And lastly, 23 schools in Baltimore have reported 0 students proficient in mathematics. No, folks, I'm not kidding. This one is a crazy episode. We got a jam-packed one for you. As always, support the show by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leaving us a short, sweet comment down below. Your help support would be greatly appreciated. Well, to kick it off with our lead story of the day, more Americans are saying that they are worse off financially than at any other time since the Great Recession. But if you listen to Joe Biden's State of the Union address, everything's A-okay. This whole narrative that the economy has been doing fine has been pushed for like 2 years now, but it was really pushed heavily right before the State of the Union address because all the reporters in the press briefing room the other day were questioning Karine Jean-Pierre on, hey, we've all done our own poll numbers. We're all in alignment with one another. We're all with different outlets here, and we're all getting the same numbers that Americans are worse off. So how do you make sense of that? We'll get to that in just one moment, but Americans are more pessimistic about their finances than any other time since the Great Recession, as economic challenges such as inflation persisted throughout the year. Check this out. Some 50% of respondents to a Gallup poll survey, 50% are saying they're financially worse off. Crazy numbers compared to 1 year ago. While 35% believe they are financially better off, marking the most dismal results for the poll since the economy crashed in 2008 and 9. Lower income Americans were the most likely to report that they have been worse off since last year. Approximately 61% reflected pessimism about their current finances in 2023, while 41% said the same this year. There's a clear partisan divide with respect to perceptions of financial well-being. 61% of Republicans and 37% of Democrats say they were worse off. However, Americans tend to offer more optimistic views of their finances under certain administrations because there's an inherent bias within an individual to favor one administration over the other. So you're going to have some sort of skewed data with that. It's really hard to remove biases out of observational studies because you're not designing an experiment where you can put yourself and subject yourself into it to remove those variables in the first place. So it's inherently going to happen. Well, if you recall, we did cover this the other week. This is not a new press briefing. You have Brian Deese, which is the National Economic Council Director under the Biden administration, taking a question about a very similar poll here, and he spins it, manipulates it. But one thing I also want you guys to notice is all the reporters, check out literally every single reporter that's possibly on screen, shaking their head in unison and talking about the poll that the reporter is going to question him on in agreement, because one of the main themes of this press briefing was about that data of all of them doing their own polls and coming up with the same numbers roughly about how the economy sucks and everybody's worse off. But Joe Biden's pushing this whole narrative. Oh, everything's fine. Nothing to worry about. Things are good. So here's this clip. Watch everybody around her. It's hilarious.
Thanks, Brian. Another polling question, you touched on it a little bit with some of my colleagues' questions. You mentioned how the president said Friday that the state of the economy is strong. We had a poll out over the weekend, ABC News, that found that 41% of Americans say they're worse off financially now than before this president took office. How do you explain the disconnect there of why this administration's message about the strong economy is not getting through?
Right. So I think the poll that you just cited is actually consistent. So about 2/3 of Americans say that their circumstances are better than before. You say it either way.
Well, you can't say it either way, Brian, because it doesn't work that way, and that's not what the number's saying. He's actually corrected in the same press briefing as time goes on by another reporter after he gives some sort of cockamamie answer to that question. So I didn't show it, but let's actually show this reporter correcting him. And he's literally stunned. Brian Deese doesn't know what to say when it's brought to his attention that everything he just rambled about was wrong. And here's the actual numbers and here's the interaction.
About that same question, I guess when you've been asked variations on this, on the perceptions voters are having in the economy, but when do people start feeling more optimistically about the outlook? And just to clarify on the stat that was just cited, it's only 16% of those in the poll believe they're financially better off than when Biden entered the office, the White House. It's 42% feel about the same. So just to clarify, it's
He said 66%, Brian Deese did, by the way, that they are better off. Well, you could just kind of phrase it the opposite way. No, you can't, Brian. No, you can't. You were just corrected by another reporter from the White House press pool.
Only 16% are feeling better off. Yeah, so when do people start feeling, more people start feeling better off about the financial future?
Notice that Brian Deese there just kind of laughs about it. He doesn't even know what to say because he looked like a knucklehead by saying 66% are better off when in actuality it was 16%. But, hey, it's just numbers, right? It's just a challenge. It's not a crisis. Whenever you hear the Biden administration talk about a challenge, it's a crisis and things are bad. Well, the results come after a volatile year throughout the economy that was throttled by inflationary pressures, labor shortages, and supply chain bottlenecks, contributing to negative economic growth in the first 2 quarters of last year. Year over year, headline inflation was charted at 6.5% in 2022 in December. That's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, marking a decrease from 9.1% inflationary record in June of 2020, meaning we're still seeing triple the amount of inflation that we would normally see in a normal year, where you're looking at roughly 1 to 3% on average. Well, that was not the messaging that Joe Biden was pushing in his whole, State of the Union address that I had to subject myself to. It was so bad that I thought I was getting dementia, and that's why we didn't have a show the other day, because I didn't know what the heck was going on. So clearly it's contagious, folks. Be careful. This is what Joe Biden said. Inflation has been a global problem because of the pandemic that disrupted supply chain and Putin's war that disrupted energy and food supplies. This is one of the biggest talking points from this administration is Putin's price hike. It's all Putin's war that's done everything. Even though inflation was up before Putin ever invaded Ukraine, and those are numbers that anybody with half a brain can look up themselves. They do the same messaging with gas prices, that gas prices were already astronomically high before Joe Biden took office, when they weren't. They increased exponentially even before February, meaning before Putin ever invaded Ukraine. But we can't talk about all those things, folks, because it goes against the narrative. If you go against the narrative, you're a bigot. You're all these other things. You're the names that the lefties want to call of us, all the libs. Well, but we're better positioned than any other country. This is from Joe Biden. Yes, you heard him. But we're better positioned than any other country. Food inflation is coming down, he said. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months, while take-home pay has gone up. Oh, well, let's see how he manipulates this, you guys. Even as nominal wages rose amid companies hiking pay to attract more employees, and some effect of that was the government falsely inflating the economy by sending out stimulus checks to everybody and continuing those stimulus checks, even though there was many people within the economy that never needed them because they didn't lose their job in the first place or they were still working. But since they're going to pump them out like hotcakes, what actually ended up happening was the government was out competing the private sector. So people were staying home because they were making more money sitting on the couch than they would be at home. So what the employers have to do, they had to compete now with the government to get people back to work, which is insane, which is absolutely insane. So as nominal wages rose, the country nevertheless witnessed a decrease in real wages of 1.7% from December 21 to December 2022. Again, that was from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The latter metric considers the effect of inflation on household purchasing power. So not only are you making less theoretically, but you're also being affected by inflation as well, which has been going up and it basically went up and dropped down just a little bit here. If that isn't bad enough, if that isn't bad enough, wait till we get to these numbers here. The pessimism regarding current finances also follows one of the worst years of the stock market in modern history. And Joe Biden was there twice for it. The S&P 500 index dropped 20% last year, rivaling the 37% decline witnessed in 2008 amid the collapse of the banking system. Who was president in 2008? Oh, it was Barack Obama. And who was his vice president? Oh, it was Joe Biden. So Joe Biden was around in the Oval Office twice. This guy sucks. If you really want to kick in the nuts, retirement account values therefore plummeted 25% for the first 3 quarters of the year. 25%. But it's just a challenge, you guys, not a crisis whatsoever. Respondents to the Gallup poll survey maintained a fair degree of optimism regarding their future financial prospects. Some 60% believe their finances will be better off 1 year from now, while 28% believe their finances will be worse off. Gallup said Americans remain optimistic about the year ahead for their financial situations, which they typically are almost regardless of recent economic conditions, meaning people are very hopeful that things are going to turn around. And through 100 years of tracking history or more that we've seen in the United States, that tends to be true, which is why you're going to have a poll year after year that asks the same question, getting the same exact result. Let me know what you think about this, though. Do you think things are going to get better under Joe Biden? You think things are going to get worse? Are your finances in order here with the Biden administration controlling everything? Let me know in the comment section below. Well, to kind of ease your mind a little bit after that other story with Americans saying they are financially worse off than any other time since the Great Depression, or Great Recession rather, we got a clip here that should lighten your mood a little bit with a Republican, Representative Luna, destroying Democrats on illegal immigration. Let's go ahead and roll the clip.
Lady yields back. Chair recognizes Ms. Luna for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to correct the record. It was Obama-Biden who built the cages, aka chain link partitions, used by Border Patrol stations as a safety measure to guard against things like sexual assault. I know that we had heard earlier that Trump built cages. That is simply not true. And it is also, as seen behind me, Biden who put kids in shipping containers, something that the media wanted to fact check. But as you can see, these are shipping containers. Now, it is no secret that there is a crisis at our southern border. Obviously, Mayorkas was actually caught on a hot mic a couple of years ago saying that these numbers were unsustainable. We have approximately 325,000 children enter the U.S. under Biden administration, and these are unaccompanied minors a majority of the time, and it's vastly between these ports of entries. Now, Mr.
You know, with all this data and facts that she's spitting out, 'cause she's doing a phenomenal job here, just slapping Democrats right upside the head. Where's AOC? Where's the squad? Where's all the outrage coming from the Democrats? Because under the Trump administration, right? Oh, you're putting them in cages. You're putting them in shipping containers. They're drinking out of toilets, right? You had AOC going down there, falsely reporting all this stuff and taking these fake photos. And, you know, Trump was a racist and all these other things. You're ripping children out of their arms. You know, all this craziness coming from the Democrats. Where are they right now? The same stuff is still happening. There's actual photos you can still look out under the Biden administration of people actually in cages. There were so many people in cages under COVID that the CDC was only allowing 50% capacity, and the Biden administration had these people in pods of cages that were only supposed to hold like 150, 200 people. They had like 400, 450 people in these cages, in these pods, exceeding the CDC limit. So the CDC questioned them on it, and they're like, can we raise the number to 100% maybe? And the CDC actually followed through with it, going, yeah, no problem, not a big deal. So it's amazing. It's amazing that Democrats are non-existent on anything. It's only convenient when their narrative, when they need it. But when their own side does it, all of a sudden they want to turn a blind eye to it.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask for unanimous consent to enter these two graphics into the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
The Biden administration does not want to acknowledge these facts, and they certainly don't want to know who's coming into our country. It has been estimated that a shocking 60% of Latin American children who cross the border are caught by cartels and exploited for child pornography and drug trafficking, which would be roughly about 200,000 kids under this administration. As Representative Andy Biggs had stated, because of a letter that he received, 42,577 children have been lost. Just before I go into my next point, Chief Chavez, can you tell me the youngest age of a known rape victim that you've come across or that you've heard of?
I don't have the age, ma'am. I know that when we go to the Central Processing Center, and this was in El Paso, my intelligence agents, as well as Homeland Security investigations agents, they do the debriefs at the center.
Do you have minors that are raped when crossing the border? Has it been an occurrence that has happened to either Chief Chavez or Chief Modlin? Yes or no, please. Sorry, we're limited on time.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Joe Biden wouldn't know that, though, because when he went to El Paso, he was basically there for nap time because he was there for 3 or 4 hours. Didn't see any illegal immigrants, and according to Karine Jean-Pierre, it was just circumstance. It just so happened that thousands of illegals that were storming the streets of El Paso just disappeared the day before Joe Biden shows up, and he didn't see anybody. He didn't see nothing. He was literally there for 3 or 4 hours, so he wouldn't know this. But hey, he cares about everybody, right? He cares about Americans. He can do everything he possibly can about this. While touting during the State of the Union that, oh, well, we had 90-something% of Venezuelans and El Salvadorians and Ecuadorians and all these people coming across the border. Well, those are down. Literally, he broke a record for illegal immigration in the month of December. So you could say like there's certain demographic or certain immigrants coming from certain countries that are down, but you're still shattering records, Joe. There has not been an American sitting president since the inception of this country that has had that many illegal immigrants cross the border in 1 month. But, you know, Joe Biden's going to sit there and lie and spin things, manipulate, which I know we're so typical and accustomed to here on the Ball Brad channel.
Yes, on my end.
Thank you. President Trump did expand biometrics collection to include DNA testing pilot program and fingerprinted children under the age of 14 to crack down on child smuggling and migrants posing as fake families. Now, I hear a lot of rhetoric saying that it was wrong for people to separate children, but I, as a Hispanic woman and a veteran, think that it is the right thing to do to separate children until you can biologically confirm that they are not being handed over into the hands of traffickers, and it is grossly irresponsible to hand those children that we might not have any idea if they're actually.
Is anybody else loving this woman? I mean, she's beautiful, of course. I mean, she's Republican, but heck, the intellect there, and a veteran. This woman has it all. Does that not deserve a like and subscribe to the Bald Brad channel for bringing you great content here? She's killing it. Just whacking Democrats upside the head. This is what we needed on a Friday morning after listening to Joe Biden's speech and dealing with his shenanigans. The guy can't even blow up a balloon out of the sky, let alone freaking speak correctly and read from a teleprompter, which we had to listen to that shenanigans as well for an hour and a half. I know I'm repeating myself, but it was that bad.
Biologically related. Chief Maudlin, would you agree that you would rather have a child to be confirmed to be a known family member than release them into the hands of a trafficker?
Thanks, ma'am. So I would agree. Anything that helps us determine the actual familial bond is positive.
Okay, so with my follow-up question on this one, are children currently having their biometric data being collected under this administration?
Ma'am, it depends on the age of the children, but 14 and above, they are, as I testified to earlier in Tucson sector, the vast majority are 17-year-old Guatemalan males. It's fairly rare to see young unaccompanied females in Tucson.
Are you able to collect at every sector in every section of the border?
I can't speak for the other sectors, ma'am, but
We do the same in RGV.
Okay. I would just like to also ask one more thing. A large part of your job is engaging in catching those that are engaging in human smuggling and trafficking. Do you believe that with more funding that you could do your job better?
Ma'am, I absolutely believe more funding, we can do our own job, we can do our job better, absolutely.
Ma'am?
I agree the same, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to close out with this because I know that we're limited on time here. For any member of this House of Representatives advocating to defund Border Patrol and ICE, not only are you complicit in engaging in aiding and abetting traffickers, but you are hurting minority children at that. And with my final question, can you please tell me, are a majority of Border Patrol agents white or Hispanic?
Ma'am, my understanding is the majority of Border Patrol agents are Hispanic. And as I've stated earlier, most of them are either first-generation migrants or migrants themselves.
I will close with this. Clearly, we don't have a white supremacy history in this country. Clearly, it's an illegal immigration one. I thank you guys for your service, and please tell your counterparts, God bless them. Thank you.
Damn, that woman is good, man. I'll tell you something. Representative Luna, you might be a future president one day. Let me tell you something, folks. There's a push here by the progressive left, the libs, and this includes the Democrat Party as well, of course, that it's white supremacy, that they're stopping illegal immigration, all these other things. They're literally calling Border Patrol agents white supremacists or white supremacists, which is mind-blowing because you just saw there that the majority are Hispanic. Literally, we live in a society now, we live in a culture and a milieu that it doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, you're just now a white supremacist. I mean, they called Thomas Sowell and Uncle Tom a white supremacist. I mean, it could be anything. You can be Hispanic now and be a white supremacist, I suppose. It's just... You guys, it is so crazy, the left. Well, if that wasn't crazy enough, hearing the left's narrative of calling Hispanic people white supremacists or listening to Thomas Sowell being called a white supremacist or whatever it may be, we have a crazy number here of ICE reporting an error on illegal immigration. This one's really going to be really, really short. I just got to get to the error itself. So the head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, Tay Johnson, admitted to major errors in illegal immigration data recently exposed by the Daily Caller News Foundation, according to a letter the agency sent the Republican Texas Representative Pat Fallon, obtained exclusively by the DCNF. The DCNF earlier discovered that ICE provided the public with erroneous data, underreporting the number of illegal immigrants released into the country without any trafficking technology by more than 18,000%. You guys, let me reread this. ICE filed and reported erroneous data. They underreported the number of illegal immigrants being released into the country without any tracking or technology by more than 18,000. It doesn't stop there. And misreporting the number of illegal immigrants tracked with GPS technology by roughly 600%. It's the bleep storm that is going on down there is mind-blowing. And what they attributed this to was just a mishap in oversight. It was just an error, just a clerical error. That's all it was. We just had an oopsie. So that's what's going on at the southern border. You got Joe Biden just saying it's not even a challenge. I actually forget the term that he called it. It was just, it was an issue. They literally downgraded it to just being called an issue now. It was a challenge for 2 years, but now it's just an issue when matters get worse. It's amazing how the things that continue to get worse are less a priority on Democrats' mind than things that are actually the issue and should be the top priority on Democrats' mind. But hey, you know what? They're ass backwards, which is so typical of the left and the Democrat Party as well as the libs. Well, moving into our third story of the day, speaking about things that are ass backwards and upside down, you got Baltimore schools having 0 students proficient in mathematics. You guys, I hope you're sitting down for this because it shows you where our education is going and there's no hope for it. As an educator myself, there is no hope for it unless you have a massive restructuring. So the Maryland State Department of Education recently released Baltimore students' 2022 test results. You sitting down? Revealed that 93% of 3rd through 8th graders tested below their grade level in math. I'm a math teacher myself. This is a kick in the nuts. After analyzing the results, the local news outlet found 23 schools, city schools, where not a single student tested proficient in math. 23 schools were sampled in Baltimore, in Maryland, and not a single, they couldn't find a single student that was proficient in math. Now you might be like, well, those schools sucks. It's the teachers. I mean, it's really everybody's fault. It's the kids' fault. It's the parents' fault. It's the teacher's fault. I mean, it is an accumulation of everything. And I'll explain why in just one moment after this next paragraph. The nearly 24 schools with abysmal test scores included 10 high schools, 8 elementary schools, and 3 middle/high schools, and 2 elementary and middle schools. In total, 2,000 students at those learning institutions took the math assessment and 0 scored at grade level. Now, we talked about how roughly 93% of kids are proficient in their class, meaning they're actually getting really good grades, extremely good grades. But then when they're given an objective test, like you're seeing here, you only had 2% actually being proficient in mathematics. So what you're seeing is a contradiction with what's taking place in the classroom to an objective test where they actually don't know the information. How does that happen, Brad? Well, students nowadays are allowed to retake the same test they saw on test day up to 100%. They can take it as many times as they want, meaning they're not actually learning anything. They're just memorizing the questions and just filling stuff out. There's no actual critical thinking involved in any of it. They can retake quizzes. Some districts are literally doing 50% on missing assignments, meaning you don't even have to turn an assignment in anymore and you get 50%. So that's how they're doing all this stuff, as well as offering extra credit. They're curving grades as well. So that's how you manipulate the data in the school system, and it's happening everywhere. It is literally an epidemic in terms of the skewed data and the inflated grades that you're seeing. Trust me, it is. If you actually got an inside look on all this stuff, your head would spin. Furthermore, this doesn't surprise me because you have kind of a milieu, a culture in America where there is really a big lack of studying. There's an idea that you have to practice, it's called mathematical practice. You have to practice these skills at home. And the best way I explain it to parents, to students, or anybody even out there on the outside that I have conversations with about education is you have to treat mathematics like a skill, like a sport. If you came on the ice rink with me, because I played ice hockey for over 25 years, still a referee, if I taught you ice skating skills and you never ice skated before, and even if you had and you weren't that good at it, even if I was to teach you and you were to go home and not practice whatsoever, and then I'd see you a month later or two weeks later, whatever it may be, and yet at practice, you're still going to suck. There's not going to be any progress. Even if you practice a little bit, you're still not going to excel to the point of where maybe you need to be. Some people need a lot of practice in ice skating. Some people might need a little bit of practice to be at the same level of each other, depending on just cognition skills, motor skills, and things like that. So you have to practice your skills to be good at something. Math is the very same way. Some people are going to progress faster than others in the same way. There's some people that progress in sports faster than others, but you have to do it. So if you're going home and you're not studying and you're not sitting your kid down and actually making sure they're studying, but they're just up in the room swiping on TikTok and Snapchat for 3 hours and going, well, I couldn't figure it out. It's bogus, you guys. It is such a lie. And for some reason, as parents and adults, we really buy into it of like, oh yeah, they couldn't figure it out. You guys, we live in a time where technology is at our fingertips. You can learn anything you want. You can literally go to Harvard without going to Harvard just by watching stuff online. You can learn anything you want. So this day and age of like, well, I don't understand why my grades are bad. The teacher's not teaching me, the school sucks or whatever it may be. That might all be true, but it still does not give you an excuse not to excel in your academics. Well, they're underprivileged, they're in a poor income area. They have a cell phone. They can watch YouTube. Since when did we start as Americans rolling over on our backs going, poor me, poor me? That is not pulling up by the bootstraps. That is playing victim mentality. That is oppression mentality. You want to sit there and roll over and say, whoa, whoa, me, rather than climbing the ladder. You know what's going to happen? There's going to be those people out there that don't say, whoa, whoa, me. There's not going to be those people. There's people out there that aren't going to be lazy. There's going to be those people that are going to excel above you because you don't want to sit there and take the necessary precautions you can to be successful. In general, there's always those outliers out there. There's always those cases. There's always those nuances. But in general, you have to rise up. So there's no excuse here. You can blame it on the schools all you want. And I think there's definitely room to be blamed there, from the admin to the administrators to the teachers. But at the end of the day, what's going on with the parents and students as well? So we can't just focus on one. We got to focus on all. The city of Baltimore, Maryland's comprehensive assessment program test results were the lowest in the state. Shocker. Only 7% of third through eighth grade students scored proficient in math. That's a lot better than some. Like I said, the other one we looked at the other week was 2%. In addition, less than 15% of students in 4 additional Maryland cities scored proficient. I mean, Maryland is just, there's no education going on. And by no education, I mean students aren't going home and actually learning this stuff and taking the time to really absorb it and have those skills of going from factual knowledge to cognitive fluency to procedural fluency to actual being able to perform these procedures on a test, an objective test where you can't sit there and BS your way through it. I know we want to say, well, we're just bad test takers. I used to say the same thing. You know what it was, folks? I just didn't study. And at least I'm honest with myself. I just didn't put in the effort. I wasn't a bad test taker. I just didn't study. So I didn't know the stuff when the test came up. So everybody, oh, well, they just forget it all. No, they didn't forget it all, you guys. They just didn't put in the time that other people did to score really well. Then what they did, put in the time, that's why they scored really bad. But let me know. Maybe I'm too harsh. Maybe I'm an a-hole. I don't know. I think everybody should be blamed. I just don't think it should just be the teachers or the admin. The kids to blame too, as well as the parents. Maybe even more, because it's not like we're just sitting in the classroom not doing anything. We're teaching. It's up to you to take those skills that you were taught, that instruction manual, meaning your notes, and practicing it at home. It might take a long time. I'm sorry, that's life. Some things take a long time to learn. You can go on YouTube. Khan Academy's free. There's free tutoring at some libraries. There's so many outlets of you being successful. It's offered in this great nation of ours that it's almost impossible not to be successful. But again, racism, oppression, bigotry, all those stuff's out there hindering people some way, shape, or form, which is a lie. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. I love hanging out with y'all on a Friday. Sorry we didn't have a show the other day. You guys, I work like 3 or 4 jobs, man. I try my best. I love doing this, and trust me, I want to hang out with you all. I want to be here in the live chat, reading it, responding, leaving comments with you. You guys are my number one people I want to hang out with. But also, we're going to have mega news here coming up at the end of February. I'm going to have a date here, hopefully at the end of next week, and I'll post in the community tab. I'll keep talking about it everywhere. I'll even have a separate video saying, hey, let's plan around this. We'll hang out together for a bit, and I'll launch some stuff here on the Bald Brad channel and ask for your guys' support and all of it. And there's a major goal that I made for myself, a huge bucket list, and we accomplished it. So I will announce all of that in a week or so. And with that being said, hit that like and subscribe button, leave us a comment down below. And folks, I will see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.